Friends, we have officially entered the season of Lent, the 40 days leading up to Easter, not including the Sundays. And I wondered, just for the season of Lent, if we might, before we begin to dive into Word, if we can practice some meditation. So I'm going to invite you to a small meditation at this time. And this one, I'm calling it Honoring Your Body. So if you just lead and participate, engage as I give you the prompts, and we'll begin that way. Like you to sit down. Anybody standing, sit down, sit down. All right, in your comfortable position where you are. Like I said, notice your nervous system, where it's beating, where it's kind of on alert. Just go where your nervous system is screaming and let it be known that it's okay. As you settle into a comfortable position, I'd like you to pay attention to your breathing at this time. Notice if your breathing is shallow. If so, take time to breathe a little bit more deeply. And allow this breathing to release tension you're holding in your back, your shoulders, your arms. And even still, adjust your body for greater comfort. If you need to wiggle a little more, your shoulders. Allow yourself to relax even more. And also as an expression of your trust at this time. And gently now turn your attention to your body and invite God, Jesus, Christ, universe, the source, whoever speaks to you, invite God to speak to you through your body. First of all, just notice how you feel about life in your body. Do you feel embarrassed about it? Do you enjoy your body? What happens inside of you when you consider the idea of honoring your body or meeting God in your body? Let's ask, what is the condition of your body these days? Have you been carrying it for constantly eating right, sleeping enough, exercising, attending to medical issues and concerns, or have you been ignoring it or even abusing it in some way? Sit with your awareness and talk to God about it. Listen. Is there anything your body is trying to tell you? Place of tension or discomfort that you may be ignoring? Any medical issue that requires attention? Any feeling of dis-ease that is vaguely unsettling and seems to just persist? Listen to see if there's anything you have been keeping outside your awareness, and let it come fully into your awareness in God's presence. We continue to breathe, inhaling the cool air that nourishes our body, exhaling all that does not serve us. Is there any way your body wants to pray right now? Any way you can express yourself to God? You can go ahead. You can follow your body's lead. And we'll take a moment to pray with our body and our soul. Count down 5 to 1, and on 1, we'll recognize where we are here. Settle into our spaces. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right. Welcome back. 2 weeks ago, I mentioned about the NDEs, the near-death experiencers, and I want to just add a few words in that the reason why NDE communities have exploded over the last decade or so is actually quite plausible. Thanks to the medical advancement, many people who could have died are coming back alive. And so there is a large community who are wanting to explore those phases where they feel or they seem or they experience where they were in between spaces. Anyway, so it's really fascinating if you are interested in hearing. I think as people who haven't experienced near death, maybe you have, yeah, I think it's fascinating. So go in here and there's conferences, there's all types of stuff that you can look into. But just for those who are like, I don't know about if I'm just letting you know that. Okay, today, as we read Deuteronomy, it's really about the act of remembering where they are, act of remembering where they came from, and also remembering that none of us come from, that every one of us come from some kind of displacement, some kind of migration, some kind of place where we are the settlers or we are the hosts. We have been in situations where we've been on both sides. And so I want to talk about what truth-telling can be like, and tie it to our message. And as you see, we have a guest here, settler and steward. I'll be asking you some questions, and you will find yourself in going to one of these areas. Okay. When I was in 6th grade, I had this brilliant idea of 6th grade, so I was entering middle school, so it's like a big school now, and we had pottery for art class. And the genius me, I thought, oh my gosh, what would happen if I dug a hole in my front yard and like hid this pottery? One day, sometime out in the future, someone's gonna take a look at it and find that, wow, they found treasure. And I made it totally authentic by breaking the pottery even before to make it look like it was real. Yeah, Deuteronomy, hear the words, a wandering Armenian was my ancestor. This place that we have gathered here, we might not know where this land came from, but I'm willing to bet this place was also intersection of history. I'm sure there were cases and places where our land was fought over. And we have the saying, no one is illegal on stolen land. And activists say this to say that we're actually all on stolen lands. How many of you guys grew up in Oregon? Okay. If my dad was born and raised in Oregon, this is my dad. He would be driving us around the town and be like, this is where the apple orchards used to be. This is where we had the strawberry fields. Oh my goodness, we had to walk miles going that way. And I'd be like, okay. Right? But my dad would have this history, and in a sense, he would say these things to let me know, like, this is important. This is important. And he would do this in Korea as well. And I'm like, I have no idea. So this is where you walk. This is where you, okay. But what does that all mean? Fremont UMC Church are not responsible for knowing what this land was like. First Church UMC doesn't need to know what this church, we ought to know what this church has been like. So I'm going to ask you a question. How we respond to what we know about our land is going to have us either respond with solidarity, respond in a way that is justice-filled, or in a way that's continually harmful and erasure of history. So here's what I'd like for you to do. Today, in this community, or even your place in Oregon, Portland, I'd like you to see yourself where you fit. So as guests, you can imagine, guest is a place where you feel like you've been a visitor. You feel like a visitor. You're kind of still learning what this place is like. And that could be Portland, or it could be even in our space gathered here. Like, I still feel a bit new. I'm not a member, you know, like I still kind of learning here and out. And then we have settlers here. Those of you who feel like you have families here, you had generations, maybe you're not tied to the land specifically, but you've been here fairly long enough. So that would be where the settler goes in. And then the stewards. These are folks who see your role as you tend and you need to give back to the land. Okay, these are folks who believe or who feel you're at a space, at a place where the land, you want to do something that gives back to the land, whether it's paying attention to indigenous ministries or some kind of idea about how this land used to be reconfigured. So if you would, at this time, move around, and when you find yourself in your group, I'd like you to ask yourself, what's it like being a guest? What's it like being a steward? What's it like being a settler? So let's go ahead and rise, and I'd like you to find yourself where you see yourself, either in this space that we are gathered here, or even in Portland. Do you feel like a guest? Do you feel like a settler? Or are you at a place where you see that your role is about giving back to the land? This is where you are now. This is not where you aspire to be. If we were aspiring to be, it might be somewhere else. So let's kind of go where we are, smack in the middle, like right now. So if you are not talking amongst your group, I'd like you to answer this question. When have you, guest folks, friends, when have you felt like a guest? When have you felt like you were displaced? Where have you felt like you were an immigrant, an outsider? Where have you felt that? Is what you'll be addressing. And then this group here, the settled, I like you together to answer this question. Have you inherited land? Have you inherited privilege? Have you inherited access that others may not have? And how do you hold this awareness? How do you hold that awareness and responsibility? So talk amongst yourself. And over here, Stuart, what would it look like for you all to not just be inhabitants, but caretakers. What would it look like to be caretakers of the land, the people, the history, is what you'll be answering. Okay, friends, I'm going to go around, bring the mics to you, and I'm hoping someone in your group can share with us the question that you wrestled with and sharing your answers. Let's start with the stewards, actually. So, Stuart, what was your question and what was the reflection that was? I don't want to just give it to John.
I'll take it. Yeah. So our question was about what would it look like if we acknowledged like the importance of history and like the depth of what we're doing. The guests are talking. They're always talking. It's fine. We want the guests to talk. It's fine. You guys are doing great. But like the sense of responsibility and like we're talking about like the openness to like what does it mean if we give this back to Native peoples? And like, oh, it would be a burden. Okay. How do we bless our community? How do we like make something that lasts longer than just what we're doing here and now?
Invite those communities in for ceremony on your grounds, and then give the grounds to them as you're giving the ceremony. So both are integral to each other, and that they can feel like they're once again part of their own land. And yeah.
Well, and even giving, like, inviting younger populations. So, like, we had the Girl Scout lock-in here. And, like, if this is a place where the Girl Scouts are like, that's the church where I did Girl Scouts, like, that's a thing. It's not necessarily, like, God, but, like, for them to have a church home. And for, because, like, we had somebody in our community whose, like, parent died, and they were like, we don't know what to do. And so they just reached out and they were like, we need, and we're like, oh, of course, like you're part of our community. Like you're not like a worshiping member of our church, but we can hold a memorial service. We can support you in this time. And they were like, oh, is that what church does? And we're like, yeah, that's what it's supposed to do. Like, here we are.
We didn't just talk about this in group, but I wanted to bring up something I had talked to Anna about before, which is, I do local theater, and a lot of times there's a shortage of rehearsal space. And one way that we could use this space is to invite people with creative pursuits who are people who are trying to connect and advance our communities so that they have a place to congregate and practice their craft.
So thank you for thinking of that. And this is a thing. The way how you share could not have come from there, but we'll see how we're going to go there. Okay, the largest group. Who's going to speak here? Glennis. Ah! The look on Glennis's face, the disappointment. Oh, me again?
Well,
There you go.
we talked about how we came here, and I came here as a privileged, entitled person. I've always been that because of my ethnicity, my position in society. And so I'm not saying that that's a good thing, but that's just something I recognize about myself.
And did you all were able to discuss about what does that mean then as those who have had access to land, privilege, and opportunities? Think about that. You didn't have much time. Okay, and I'm gonna come over here. You're not last because you're the least. You're the greatest, that's why. So what question were you wrestling with, and what were the answers that you like to share with us?
Well, some of us feel like we're a stranger or a guest wherever we are. Some sense that we want to know more about this specific geography, this specific, why is it called Hayhurst? Why is it called Pendleton? Why Vermont Hills, for that matter? And a sense of neighborhood being important, sense of location, but how do we access more information if you are newer to the community or care about the community, but trying to figure out what's your place. And then an overall sense of, again, I think in songs, I'm just a poor wayfaring stranger traveling through this land of woe, that kind of sense that we're just all traveling through and borrowing this space for a little bit and treasuring community, but trying to figure out then, what does it take to move from guest to belong?
Nicely done, Reverend Lisa G. You may come back to your seats. Oh, yes, Rebecca. You may return to your seats.
I just loved what you said about your dad. I didn't know all dads did that. I thought it was just mine. Taking me on a tour of Oakland. I worked here, I worked there, I worked there. This is where I ate lunch.
Thank you for obliging to do this activity where we kind of think and reflect about our connection, our relationship to the land. So here's a task that I like for us to think about. We can't tell the truth if we don't know the truth, first of all. And it don't matter how many times we yell out, we're inclusive, we're reconciling, we're all about ABC. If we do not know our history and we are not reconciled with it, we need to do the work of finding out whose land we're standing on and invite the elders who would maybe give us the blessing. And here's another reason why we have refrained from doing land acknowledgement. I know what land acknowledgement is. I don't want us to do a land acknowledgement just to do a land acknowledgement. I really don't. And I know as long as we're doing land acknowledgement, no one's going to work more or less with that. It's going to be, that's it. So even before land acknowledgement comes in, I want us to do some due diligence of learning where we came from so that when we say those words, we mean it, we say it like it's our conviction, and we mean it like as in we are a healing spiritual oasis and we are committed to telling the truth. One thing from these activities that we all need to be mindful of is that we have created invisible borders. We, if not ourselves, have put ourselves in these categories. Other people have also put us at we're outsiders. People have, by different systematically, discrimination. There are certain people who are going to be as settlers. There are certain people who will never land on settlers. But these are the borders that we create invisibly. What borders have we created in our minds that prevent us from reaching, from going, from moving fluidly? What is the invisible barrier that blocks us from saying, I wonder what it's like to be a guest. I wonder, oh, I remember when I was a guest. I remember what it's like to be a settler. I know what it means to be a steward. I know what it means to give back because of how much access of privilege and access to opportunities that I had. So this Lent, friends, I want us to practice our spiritual discipline, not only getting right with where we are, and it's not just a little diet here, take out Diet Coke here, sugar here. I want for us, at least for the next 40 days, to be intentional about discarding and throwing away those visible lines. I'd like for us to challenge ourselves, our biases, and I want for us to fast from exclusion. Fasting from exclusion. Exclusion is fear. So we are going to fast from fear and allow love and compassion to speak from those spaces. Friends, we have opportunities for you to go to restaurants to support the neighborhood house. Maybe you've never go to a certain part of downtown in Portland because invisible barrier. Go and check it out. Have you ever been to an AA group before? That's not a place for me. Go there. All the places where you said it's not a place for me, go and see what you learn from there. Let us pray. God, oh, excuse me, God. God's like, huh? Yeah, what'd you say? God, creator, source of life that brings us in relationship, thank you for helping us remember that none of us are without a lineage, that none of us come by ourselves, by our own might, but that we have history. We have connections that move and go beyond our understanding. Help us to recognize whose land we are on. Help us to recognize each other as our own siblings. Help us to not fear the other, but help us to see one another as a reflection of ourselves. So that during this time of Lent, may we reflect the radical acceptance and love that you so desire for world to see and witness and experience. May it be so. Amen.